Special events. There's quite a lengthy amount, but I'm going to go through them all. Consideration to approve a special event for the special needs kids fishing event at Sullivan Park Pond on March 30th. Applicant, Southern Utah Anglers / Washington City. Item 2, consideration to approve a special event for the Southern Utah Half Marathon at the Highland Park to Bloomington Park in St. George on March 28th, 2020. Applicant, Red Mountain Running Events. Item 3, consideration to approve a special event for Cotton Days and the closure of the parade route in various locations throughout the city from April 21st through April 26th. Applicant, Washington City. Celebration to approve a special event for Pioneer Day at the Veterans Park on July 24th, 2020. Applicant, Washington City. Item 5, consideration to approve a special event for Veterans Day at the Veterans Park and the closure of the parade route on November 11th, 2020. Applicant, Washington City. 6, consideration to approve a special event for Christmas in Dixie at the Veterans Park and the Covington Home on December 7th, 2020. Applicant, Washington City. Item 7, consideration to approve a special event for Lake to Lake Team Relay and Ultra to be held at Sullivan Park, City Trails, and along with the road shoulders on March 7th, 2020. Applicant, City of St. George. Item 8, consideration to approve a special event for the Ironman St. George, the bike portion of the race on May 2nd, 2020. Applicant, David Reed. Yeah.
If there's nothing to be said, Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined.
Before a second, do you mind if I just jump in on just a couple of things? I didn't see the minutes for January 7th and January 22nd in our packet.
I didn't see those either.
Um,
Are they in a different location than?
I just barely looked at them.
So maybe if we could amend that motion. And then I also have just two quick questions on the consent agenda or on the board audit. The first one, I was reading through this and getting back into the habit of reading through the expenses of the city. I think that's an important thing that we do, is that we, as a council, that we make sure the budget is being executed the way that it's been prepared and approved. And this one I just am not familiar with. It would be great if we could have page numbers on the board audit, but it's on page 3. Without a page number, you can scroll down to it. It's at the very bottom. It's a $3,000, and it says monthly, so that would be $36,000 a year. City Leadership and Excellence System fee, and I just didn't know what that is. I'm sure you do.
I can answer that. So last year, as part of the budget, we had partnered up with Learning Point with regards to leadership training, and it's a full year program that then we own after this, and so we pay those monthly fees, and I think it's due, and I think we're done with the payments in May, I believe. So it's our partnership with Learning Point, and then we own all the material, and we've actually tasked Mr. Liu to kind of oversee that, and we work with Learning Point in the training. That's for leadership.
So is that for new employees or existing employees, all employees?
Uh-huh.
It would be great at some time if it ever fits on a workshop agenda, just to have a little bit of a.
That'd be great. Yeah, we have a lot of material on that, and it would be just good to kind of show you all the processes. There's toolkits and other things that department heads and supervisors primarily learn and train on.
And it would be great to get feedback to see if that's valuable from the department heads. And I'm happy to hear that once that 36,000 is spent, that's done. So.
And it's not only done, but we own all the materials at that point. And part of this program that we liked as we looked at other programs was that they train us, that it began, then we perpetuate the training from that point on. So we own it.
Mayor, would that be possible to put that on a workshop sometime?
Absolutely.
So that we can better understand and see how that's being received by the employees? If
Thank
it's
you,
been a good.
Councilman.
Thank you.
David, what are you making on it?
May I just ask a question on the special event number 7? The consideration to approve a special event for Lake to Lake Team Relay. Does that include road closures? Do we know?
I believe that was just on the shoulders of the roads.
Just shoulders? We don't know, no road closure?
was looking at the wrong thing.
Did we get that clarified? Was it just
I'm
shoulder?
amending my motion to approve everything but the minutes from the previous. I thought I had seen them. I
So I
apologize
think
about that.
technically your motion died
Okay,
without a second.
fair enough. No motion. That being said, if we can make a motion, Mayor.
I'll entertain a motion. How's that?
Okay. To approve everything in the consent agenda with the exception of item 4A, the approval of the minutes, simply because we haven't had them to be reviewed to verify. But everything, oh, thank you. The minutes of 12:10. Wow, let's try this a third time. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with a slight amendment to item 4A to approve the minutes for meeting 12:10:19, but not 1:7:20 and 1:22:20 at this time.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Item 5, dedication plat. Consideration to approve the dedication plat for Canyon Park and Hellhole Trailhead at Sienna Hills, located approximately south of Telegraph Street and Washington Parkway off Red Trails Lane.
Mayor, might I have just a few minutes on
Absolutely.
this?
Sure.
I have some thoughts saved. If I, council, if you don't mind, I just have a few thoughts for you to consider. I've got to get out of a shared drive to my own, so bear with me. So this park and trailhead has been a long time coming. I'm sure it's longer than the history I have of 5 or 6 years. Barry could probably tell us how long this has been a planned park and trailhead. I've loved this trail, by the way, I especially all the trails that started in and around Sullivan. When they were first built, I ran them so much that I felt like that they were built just for me, and then a few others regulars that I would see, and now they're being used by so many people, and it's great to see this active outdoor lifestyle that we have in Washington City. So the word is definitely out. I really appreciate the partnership of SITLA with Washington City on this park. I mean, it is a cool park. In fact, just on my way up here, I drove by just to look at the park. And I mean, congratulations, Barry. There were so many families out there just doing the ninja course and the races and the slides. I mean, it is such a cool park. But I was thinking about this, and maybe I'm a little sentimental at this point, but names to me are very important. If you think about your name, for example, you're probably named after someone, and it probably means something to you. I think about examples of locally, like a lot of times people in Washington City say, if you're out of town, people say, where are you from? And they say, I'm from St. George, right? And maybe it's because St. George is better known, or maybe it's because they think if you say Washington, you'll mean Washington State, but I like to say I'm from Washington City, and I'm not from St. George. Think about the example of people in our community who say the rec center. It's not the rec center, it's the Washington City Community Center. And it's a community center because it brings the community together. That name was deliberate. On a personal note, a lot of people call me Chris, and my name's Cress. And I usually don't correct them, but I think, well, they don't know me if they don't say Cress. Names have historical significance for good or bad. This one we're talking about, the dedication, has a lot of historical significance because the early settlers in here worked really hard to get down this canyon to secure water to bring it back up to their settlements. And they coined a phrase that they called it, that I had actually never heard it called until I saw that was a sign that we had at that point. But that's a name that has stuck with it, right or wrong. But if you look back through history of peoples or people, sometimes they change their name. And when they change their name, it's because there's a commitment or an understanding of something better. And so they do that, and it changes things. Even organizations can make an emphasis on the proper and appropriate use of a name, and trying to change habits of calling something a certain way that maybe in the past was to slander or to be divisive or offensive. So it's so even big organizations with faithful people can change or make an emphasis on appropriate and proper names. The current name that's proposed on this dedication of the plat is quite long. It's Canyon Park and Trailhead. I know when I was talking about how cool this trailhead in this park is, I was telling my children about it. And I grew up in a family of farmers, but even to my own children, I hesitated to use the full name of this. I think we can do better. And I think we can do better simply by calling this the Canyon Park and Trailhead. And let me just say this lastly. The Red Rock apartments that are being built right there at the trailhead in the park, there are 271 units. And they're subsidized. I think we'll see a lot of children who live there, who will go down this particular trail, not to fetch water like the early settlers did, but to play and to run around and do all those cool things that we did as kids. Not to mention 91 across the street at the Trailhead Apartments, for a total of around 500 apartments off this trailhead. So my question is, do we want to have a name of this plat, this dedicated plaque, as Canyon Park and Hellhole Trailhead, or can we do it better by calling it Canyon Park and Trailhead? Don't feel guilted into making a decision, but you understand where I come from on this one.
I appreciate the conversation, Councilman. I kind of giggle because Hellhole connects into the Dam Road, and it seems like a proper conjunction of your journey. But recognizing that there is both a historical by the people who came here that had a high standard of how to use things and say things, and lovingly called it that. It's unique. I can see your concern. I was raised in many different canyons and hiking places, from Hellhole Canyon to Jackass Canyon to everything else. And, when you say them in the terms for the location and what they are to the people there, I don't sense a sense of a derogatory means in how they're being said. It's a really interesting proposal. I think with having both of those on there, I think it is kind of a fair compromise what you're trying to seek by removing one or the other. Honestly, my first feelings on that, because if you prefer to call it Canyon Park, great. If you got some old timers or some other people, or people who have a little bit different color than I do when it comes to their language, we have some unique geographical things that are already named. And if this was the starting part of it, or if it was kind of a clean slate and say, well, the old timers used to call it this, we have an existing trailhead that's been existing called by that. It's now just being amended with a beautiful park with it. Where I'm at is I think it kind of is a good compromise to keep it as it is. People can
I
refer to it
appreciate
either
that.
way.
Can I just have one other quick thought here? This trailhead, we had this discussion, not formally, but informally when I was on the council last time. And the consensus was, and the respect was given, that name was retired for that period of time. And I noticed that as soon as I left the council, that the sign was up. So in respect to prior councils as well, this was something that we had discussed, not in a formal meeting, but informally enough that there was a respect or a consensus that I had concerns with it back then. But really, Councilman, I appreciate, this is the beauty of the council. You have differing opinions and different viewpoints. I'm laying out my opinions. And really, if I'd love to hear other opinions on this. If there are another opinions, I'm prepared to make a motion. It's whatever.
Can I get a couple of points of clarification here? So I can't remember on the signage that's out there, the trailhead is still marked, or the trail, excuse me, at the trail, the head of the trail, it's still marked as Hellhole Trail, correct?
So I can answer that. So
Yeah.
There is a large ground. It's been lowered recently, but there's a large ground.
It's the wooden one that almost looks U.S. Forest Service looking, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I took my phone off and sitting here because we're in an open public meeting. I don't want to be on my phone during that. But I did take a picture of the engraved rock sign, and I can tell you exactly what it says. it says Washington City feels like home, Canyon Park, and Hellhole Trailhead at Sienna Hills. That's what the sign's, I don't know if you can see that, but
Would you
that
mind,
is the signage now.
would you mind passing it down?
Absolutely.
So okay, so the sign is already up.
While Councilman's looking at that, let me just ask, what would be the cost to, if we were to re-sign this? If we change signage, what would that entail? And
Thank you.
what kind of a cost would that involve?
It depends on what you want to re-sign, certainly the rock work, and I don't know what that is. And then just the other signs would be, I don't know what other signs, other signs would probably be minimal. The rock would probably be the most significant portion.
Which other signs do we have? I mean, so I guess there's actually, are we suggesting renaming the trail or just the park?
What I'm saying is that on this plat dedication,
Yeah.
that we modify the plat to read Canyon Park and Trailhead.
Okay.
It's a long name, for one thing. If you say Canyon Park and Hellhole, it's a mouthful, right? Canyon Park and Trailhead is simple, it's easy, it tells exactly what it is. There's a really cool canyon with a park and a trailhead.
So, but the trail itself would still retain its sign and name.
I'm proposing that we sunset the Hellhole name because I think we can do better. I think we can present better. The Parkway is one of the main entrances. There will be so many families and individuals who frequent that. And to me, I don't mind if old timers who actually, I never heard it called that until I was involved with the city, but I don't mind what people call things when they're talking about it. But to me, I think it's important that we set a standard on the way we name and refer to things within a city. And, I also appreciate the Washington Dam Road, which refers, because this was the road that I traveled many times as a child. This was a dam that was made to bring the water through the canal to flood irrigate all of the fields that brought people here. So when we're talking dam road, we're not swearing. We kind of say it funny, but it's spelled different. So I don't see the exact connection there, but there's no doubt about it that, I'm sure it was difficult to get down there. And I'm sure there were even other choice words that were used getting down to get the water and back up. I'm not saying I've never used that word. I'm just saying, I think as a city, we can put Canyon Park and Trailhead on this spot and do better. But that's up to you. I won't hold any grudges or ill will if you disagree with me, but my conscience is clear saying I've spilled my feelings to probably more than I should have.
Well, that entire, sorry, go ahead. Councilman.
Yeah, I was just the one point that you made that kind of resonated with me is, again, having some housing that's right next to there that does have the potential of having a lot of children.
In fact, I just checked with Drew and Matt, 271 units of what you would call affordable, attainable housing, children playing there all the time, referring to where they live.
Well, originally that area just north of there was called Settlers Point because that was the first stop of the pioneers that came into the valley. I'm going to share a personal story, and I don't, not that I haven't heard this before, and I'm processing it, but when we went there to the park, my 6-year-old grandson, he kind of looked at it and he says, "Can I say that?" And I said, "Well, it's a specific name, and so it's not a swear word." And we had that discussion. But I do sense what you're trying to say is that, and I'm just going to pose this as a question because I'm with you. I'm kind of up in the air right now about this. Is this what we want to put out for people to visit? Because I'm going to tell you, Barry did a great job with this part. And it's about, from what I've been there probably a dozen times just in the last month because it's my grandson's destination where they want to go. But I find that there's equally as many visitors there as residents. If they knew the historical significance, it would probably mean more to them and they would understand it better. But how many visitors actually know the history of it and that it's kind of an endearing term that we acknowledge that the people that settled our valley here went through terribly hard times to do that for us.
Well, I appreciate the conversation. It's a unique thing to put in there. Obviously, we aren't calling it the dump park either, if we wanted to be accurate about what was going on there. And since we've already cleaned that up, if you feel like we need to take a step further,
Can I just add just one thing with regards to the length of the name? Because I think I can add some insight on that. So, of course, Hellholt has been there for a while, meaning the trailhead, or an undeveloped portion of the trailhead and the trail itself. When the park started to get close to its completion, Barry and I had a lot of discussion about this. And we didn't feel, without taking away from the spirit of what the trail has historically been known as, we did not want to have exactly the concerns with regards to the park. So we came up with the name of Canyon Park because we could see children saying more often, and we didn't want this, I want to go to Hell Park. More so than, of course, the trail. And the trail had always had some historical significance. So I'll only speak to that because that's the reason for the significance of the long name, is because we did not want the park to be kind of that, along that line. So Canyon Park became that, but we just simply kept what had been there. So that's why it's lengthy anyway. That's all I can speak to.
Councilman Staley, I appreciate that we've talked this, and it's made me see this from a different point of view, and thank you. This was a trailhead at first, but now it's a park. It's assumed a different identity and a different usage, and I appreciate the perspective on it. And I could see the value in where you're going. And so if you were to change this up or propose something simply to go just back to the Canyon Park, or is there something else we should consider if we're at the point of talking about renaming this? I've heard something brought up as Settler's Point and other things else. Is this something that maybe needs some more discussion? Maybe we should look around to some historical value rather than scratching out one thing? Or do you feel good with just doing one scratch and calling it good? Because it could be named after more beautiful things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, I think since there's a park that's called Canyon Park, I think it makes sense to call it Canyon Park and Trailhead. But I certainly think there's a reverence in the history that we should talk about. I just don't know that needs to be etched in the boulder that kids are playing around and the parents are having to wonder how to explain to their to my child or grandparents to their grandchildren. I don't know. And I don't want to guilt anybody into this, but it's something that's on my mind. And so I just thought that if we could have this discussion, I would be happy to propose that we change the name on this plat to Canyon Park and Trailhead.
And just my thoughts with that is that good enough, or should we consider looking more into something that really represents, we have canyons everywhere. If we're looking for something that really represents our community better, and this is being targeted as, well, a lot of
Settlers
tourists coming
Canyon.
here or whatever, in all sincerity, if this is something we really want to consider naming it appropriately, should we rush into this, or should we talk about this and get a better perspective of what it could be named? Our staff did the best they could in a conjunction with what it was and what we could probably also call it. And I appreciate the motion for us to look at a better option as a council. Maybe this needs a little bit more education to get a better perspective of what it could be named rather than just right now, because I think it got its name and what it is now by just quickly doing things. Maybe we should talk about it and get a better perspective from either citizens or historical society. Is there a rush to change the name right now? The sign's already there.
I appreciate what you're saying. I think what I'd like to do is just make a motion that we change the name on the plat to this. We can vote it up or down. And then if it does not pass, then we could have further discussion on it. But if there's no further discussion, Mayor, would you entertain?
I'll entertain a motion, absolutely. Should I throw this into it? When I grew up, it was called Purgatory. No, make
Different
your
language
motion.
just sounds better.
Motion that we approve the dedication plat with the change of the name to Canyon Park and Trailhead at Sienna Hills, located approximately south of Telegraph Street and Washington Parkway off the Red Trails Lane.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. I'll go with a roll call vote.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, nay.
Clef, nay.
Staley, aye.
Is that 2-2? I'll vote aye. We'll move on. Public hearings, item 6. So that will be called Canyon Park Trailhead at Sienna Hills. Item 6, public hearings. Public hearing for consideration to approve a general plan amendment G-20-01.
What
Yes.
do we, I'm struggling with my vote, like, am I locked into that? There is a possibility of just looking at just maybe a slightly more historical.
All right.
I guess I'm fine with that.
Council,
Yeah,
let's have-
so what you can do, the council, and this would have been the same issue we gave you if you would have wanted to take more time. We would have still requested that the plat be, the dedication be accepted. You can do an amendment later on to the plat if the council so chooses. So that's always still.
Direct staff to maybe hold off on a change on there, and we can maybe just.
Yeah, you mean with the actual signs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we would anyway, because we're gonna have to assess cost and other things too. So we're fine with that, but down the road, you guys can do an amendment to the plat.
We change names of subdivisions.
But it's
all the
nice to
time.
have it dedicated to us.
Yeah.
That's the important thing to us.
Thank you, Darren.
Yes.
I just didn't, and I know we've had a vote, but I didn't know if there was a name that was coming from this end that maybe I just missed. I didn't want to push something down your
There was
throat,
one,
but if there's
Settlers.
but if there's a better name, if it's possible to,
Councilman, we were just bouncing around just Settlers Canyon. But I do agree that we don't want a long name. We want something short that people can identify and remember. But
Just want to, I know I abstained from this, but that rock is not moving, just so you know. It was very hard to get in that place. And so whatever happened has to be scratched off and re-sandblasted if you choose to change the name.
But they do that all the time.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just, yeah.
And I don't know what the cost of that
I'm
would
just
be, but
saying that
I
the
appreciate
rock
it.
was etched and and that rock,
The limitation would just be if you sandblast off, but previously known as. We might run out of room on that.
So this, I guess the direction is the feeling is this will come back to the council as you accept the plat as is we're.
Yeah, I don't think from our standpoint, staff will bring it back. It will be up to
But-
council to
but the-
choose to bring it back and do an amendment.
Right.
Attorney Starkey, on the plat though,
I think it needs.
the name,
That, the plat name is gonna have to change.
that's fine, but what I'm saying is that typically when you do a name change, you have to amend the plat as well.
Well, right, but I think this is a plat approval. This didn't go to a planning commission.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you change the name of the park, don't you have to change the plat as well?
The plat's gonna have to be changed, yeah.
No, hold
Okay,
on.
that-
If you change it from Canyon Park, say you come up with Settlers Park, the plat has to be redone to
They'll
city
have to
council.
amend it at that time. So you'll have to amend the plat officially just to change the recording.
Yeah, but I know some people that can do that, so.
Yeah, I know 5
Well,
people.
and I'll just clarify, before it's recorded, you can do a revision of a plat. That's before recordation. After it's recorded, then it's a plat amendment. So you have, if you want to put this on, I'm just saying, if you want to put this on your next agenda, we could probably wait till the recording and either way. I'm just offering as an option, you can do a plat
And
revision.
we don't want to postpone the recording too long.
No, we don't. I'm saying,
That's the
but
concern that the client has, is that the city park's being used right now. They need to get this plat
Need to get
dedicated
it
over to
plat.
the city.
And we also have a part.
So is it
Might want input into that. if you
Council-
guys decide on another name, maybe.
is it okay to entertain another motion
For different than the one you have.
different than what we
Well,
have?
then take the motion as you'd like to motion to amend the previous motion and see if you get a second on it.
Are you up for that, council?
Okay, so can we,
It's a conversation going into it. One of my feelings,
can we still dedicate the plat
as
there?
it is,
As is, and,
Plat's prepared as is. If you have some direction on the name change for the plat that can be changed before they record and accepted that way, then if you have that name ready to go, then that's what we would look at here. If you want to take some time, we're going to still ask for a dedication, meaning that it either gets dedicated with the name that it has on, because again, we are using it. It needs to get dedicated over to the city, and then you can do an amendment later on, which will require the costs associated with redoing the plat and having it re-recorded. Again, it's possible we could wait a week or two, but I think our goal would be this
So-
needs to be recorded.
So what would be the process to do that right now as far as making a motion? Do I motion to amend or motion?
Depends what you're thinking of doing. If you're going to change what your previous approval was, ask the mayor if you could make a motion to amend the previous approval and see if you get a second for it.
What I would like to have is Councilman Staley, if he would entertain that thought, or if that would be acceptable with him.
Really, for me, I'm open to any appropriate name, except for the name that I'm not, the Hellhole Trailhead. That's, so I have no strong feelings. So if there are feelings of, Settlers Canyon or something like that, I'm totally happy with that.
You okay with that, Mayor? Can I make a
I'm
motion?
absolutely okay with that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Staley. I would like to make a motion to approve the dedication plat for the Canyons Park.
So you want to amend your previous motion to be that. That would be great.
Sorry, I would like to make a motion to amend the previous motion that we change the name from Canyon Park and Hellhole Trailhead to Settlers Canyon Trailhead.
Second.
Okay,
You can discuss it if you want. Yeah.
Do we-
Trailhead or
Settlers,
Settlers Canyon
Settlers Canyon Park?
and Trailhead.
Now, one of the reasons that Councilman Ivy brought up is this is a very near, another known landmark that recommends us. And I think tying us to something that is to our community rather than just a canyon. I think that's more respectful to our heritage.
Council may have just a minute.
Please.
So I don't want to rush into the name change.
Well, yeah, I was just going to
And
mention.
so
that
I'm
I-
sitting here,
yeah.
I mean, we previously worked with staff to get the canyon name. If that's not what the council wants, we can amend that. But what I'm trying to say is that if it's 2 weeks and you can look at it in 2 weeks, maybe table this item for 2 weeks, have discussion, and then if it's so moved, put it on the work meeting right before the council meeting, if that works, to discuss it and then deal with it. Is that what you would
Well, I'm kind of
like?
the same way because even though I like the name better, I recognize that the rock is still there and that changing that one portion may be a lot different than changing the entire name of the park. I love the idea, but I may not love it $20,000 or something of that nature. So I'm kind of considering voting it down, asking, just seeing if this motion will die in a nay vote, and then making another motion that asks staff to bring back some cost numbers associated with this very name and bring it back to us in the next workshop, and then voting on the change at that time when we have just a little bit more information. But we would still get the dedication for the developer who built the park and get them done.
My feelings on this, and in conjunction with what you're saying, is I think a council's come to an agreement that it's appropriate to look for a different name. And maybe it would be good to get both the costs and maybe a little bit more research and looking at what would be an appropriate thing if it was not named what it is. And I agree the idea of tabling it to give us that opportunity to maybe do a little bit more footwork on our part and a conversation. It looks important to us. This is what's going to be representing us. We get a lot of tourists and kids around this. It needs to change.
Am I to understand then from you three who have not abstained, right, who are in this conversation, that you're supportive of removing the name Hellhole Trailhead? Is that, I'm seeing nods, the yes on all fronts. Then I can 100% support that, because I would like this entire council to have, and working with staff to come up with a name that we can have that we can all buy into. I would totally support that. And I appreciate the support reciprocated that we can sunset the name Hellhole out of whatever name that is.
That's fine. It's not the dump park, so we're okay with that.
I withdraw my motion.
Well, so it's actually out there. I'm going to just I think we just need to vote at this point and to get rid of the motion. Is that correct? So it was motioned and seconded. So Mayor, if you're ready for a vote,
I'm ready for a vote.
Ward, nay.
Ivy, nay.
Clough, nay.
Staley, nay.
Is that the first time in history you make a motion and vote nay?
No.
You gotta be famous for
In a
something.
few years.
Belliston used to do that all the time, just to bring it to a vote.
So now do we need to entertain a motion to
To table.
table?
Well, so,
No. So right now.
yes, we need to make an
Let's
amendment to the
talk.
motion and I would like to propose an amendment to the motion that we, so we'll still, I'm losing my verbiage. We will still grant the plat, but we'll ask staff to withhold recording of the plat until such time as we can have staff present cost changes, what it would cost to make the changes, and then table the decision of the name until the 2 weeks from today.
Here's what I would suggest, because what's been done right
You didn't like what I just did?
I love what you did. Let's just make that clear. I love what you've done with this right now. So far, we've approved this plat and the dedication, acceptance of a dedication of this park and the plat and what it represents. We've changed the name of it as per that motion. However, that means that we can still go forward. We can still do the review process that it takes for staff to go through the review process and approve it. And before the final filing of that, you'll still have the 2 weeks in effect if you want to try to wordsmith and discuss and get options from staff about new names and what would all take. Then you would then make a motion to amend the naming of the plat that has already been approved, and you change the name of it before we even record it. That would be fine.
Which means that they would not have to make any additional motion.
Right, you wouldn't have to table anything. It won't be done before then. Staff will do, I can promise you, from my perspective alone, it will drag long enough for 2 weeks for signing of it and recording it. But we will not record it until city council has had the chance to perchance amend the naming of that plat. But this doesn't change the fact that it's now been approved and the land and the improvements dedicated to the city.
That's fine.
So you've done everything in a lovely manner, to make sure you understand that.
Wasn't fishing for a compliment.
It's added a smidge like this. I just want to.
All right, so we're able to move on.
As long as we can have in our next workshop meeting, staff bring the cost to us.
It's still part of the meeting. And then add the,
Third or
onto the
fourth.
next workshop, Tara, thank you. And thank you, council. We'll move on to item 6, public hearing for consideration to approve a general plan amendment, G-20-01, requesting to change the land use designation from business to industrial. Property is located approximately 840 South 100 East, Washington, Utah. Applicant Ken Jolly.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As stated, the applicant is seeking to amend the general land use map. The area is proposed to be changed as 6.9 acres. The current land use designation is, as stated by the mayor, business. The applicant is seeking approval to have the land use designation changed to industrial for the possibility to develop the area into a future commercial/industrial project for storage units. The surrounding general plan land use designations are open space to the north and east, industrial and estate zone designation to the west, and business to the south. As stated above, the applicant again is wishing to amend this and hopes to develop the project into storage units. The industrial designation allows for I-1, I-2, and business park zoning districts. And again, storage units are found in those under the conditional use permit application process. So basically they are permitted uses in that. Staff has reviewed the requested change and finds no problem with the minor adjustment from business, just so you know that business is actually part of your industrial, but it's specifically designated for business park. And so with that, the storage units are not allowed in Business Park. They're only allowed in I-1 and I-2. So that's why this adjustment, I call it a minor one, because if you go to the industrial code, it has light industrial, heavy industrial, and business park, just to statewide, it's a minor change. But staff also recognizes that the problem that once you do give a designation of industrial, they're allowed to ask for I-1, I-2, or business park in there as a zone change that would come at a subsequent meeting. The Planning Commission reviewed the request through the public hearing process on January 15th. A couple weeks ago, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of G-20-01 to amend the general plan land use map from the current business designation to the proposed industrial designation as outlined and shown in your exhibits. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this proposal going again from business to industrial.
So Drew, can you explain read off, I guess, the I-1 for the public that's here, that what can go into an I-1?
Well, that's a lengthy, there's a lot of things that can go into I-1, unfortunately. I guess I can roughly maybe tell you some of those things, like an auto body shop, auto repair shop could be in an I-1. Other things in I-1 would be light manufacturing. Just trying to pick some things out that I know that are in I-1s.
Under the manufacturing, where does it cross over? Give me some examples of where it crosses over from light manufacturing to heavier manufacturing.
That would just be basically in your, well, I think it goes with our discussion. I really like that we talked about where your light manufacturing is businesses dealing with pre-done made products and making them into something else. So it's not taking raw materials and creating something. It's already something that's been created, developed, built, but they're taking those products and making a different product.
But that's not currently in the code yet, right? We're still working.
No, but that's still a good explanation, even though we didn't word it like that. It's still probably how we would look at that. Heavy industrial is more taking raw materials, turning them into.
I can build
something.
a snowboard there, but I can't make the plastic.
Right. I can't create the resin there. I can put the resin on because it's already made, but it's making that resin out of all the raw materials would be heavy industrial, and light industrial would be taking that resin that's already comes in a 5-gallon bucket and applying it to the skateboard. That's a good way to explain that, is the difference between the two. Now, again, the family's intent, as they have stated, is for storage units, but as we talked about in the Planning Commission meeting, if they do get the I-1 and then 2 weeks later, a really wise business person comes and offers them a really good check because he has a business that can fit in an something that's a little more harsh than storage units, that could possibly happen. Not saying it would, but we have to think about those things that are coming down the line. And so any other questions that I can help you with before your public hearing, Mayor?
Any additional questions for Drew?
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. Those of you that have a concern or a question or a comment, we appreciate you coming up.
Hello, Council. My name is Jeff Jolly. I live in the Hobble Creek subdivision, just to the north of the proposed area. I guess the concern I have is the I-2, obviously. With I-1, the storage units would be able to fall under that I-1, and it would satisfy both what the Jollies are wanting, and I think it would be better for the residential neighborhoods that are also close. The I-2, obviously, I have some concerns about with a lot bigger industry or type business coming in and building some sort of business that is either loud or kind of an eyesore or something like that. Now, I've spoken with the Jollies that have proposed this. I trust them that they're, wanting to build these storage units, but if the I-1 satisfies both their needs and keeps it minimal, why must we also include the I-2? Yes.
Clarifying question from you. So right now, we're in the general plan phase, so we have to do a general plan amendment to change it to industrial, and then it will come back as a zoning change, which we would then decide either I-1 or I-2. So just to be clear from what you're saying, you would be okay with the general plan change to industrial, but you would specifically, in the next phase, you would want that to only be an I-1 and not an I-2.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, good evening. My name's Rod Weiler. I actually live in Cotton Meadow, the subdivision just to the west or east, I guess, of the proposed development. I've been in real estate for over 30 years, and so I understand zone changes and plat changes and so forth. But I think as you look at these particular, issues that you're deciding upon, you really have to look at probably the highest and best use of what a property is. And appraisers look at that when they're appraising properties. And obviously, there's a lot of differences between the different zoning configurations. I personally, if I had my suggestion, I would rather see it, I think down the road, there would be more tax base and so forth for the city if it was residential. I know it's not residential now or zoned that way, but there's a lot of needs for housing in the city. And I think as you go up and down that 100 East Street, you've got a lot of property that's agricultural or acreage on that west side. And then you've got the side on the east that's further down. You do have that steel plant that's off of Industrial Way, I think, right there as well. So there's a lot of noise and so forth that comes from those areas, along with that cement factory that's there on 100 as you get closer to the intersection. I would be in favor. As a realtor, I generally like to have people do what they want with their land, and I understand that. I guess I would rather have something different there than an industrial zoning, perhaps residential, maybe zone it residential and let him still decide if he wants to sell it off to a developer. And I think it would probably bring him more tax base, as well as the city, having that tax base as well. So I would encourage you to consider maybe not zoning that industrial, and maybe consider it as something else residential if you're going to make a zoning change or a change in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Loretta Jensen, and I'm in Cotton Meadow also. I just kind of like to see that pasture, but because our view is right over that area. But I understand, change has to come, and I don't mind the idea of putting some of the storage units in there, maybe making it zoned for that, but how much is going to be, how many units is going to be there? Can that be divided if you're going to do PUDs and then have that too, or, have to rezone to make that division? I would hate to see all of a lot of storage units in there. And then I'm concerned about a road coming through, and there's that road that we're on 840 Cotton Lane there too, to come off of there. But that's my concern, is just, light industrial. I don't know, what does that include? And the storage units are under the industrial, I understand, but so I have concern, because to me, there's so much property being taken, agriculture, but I see that you have to pass things on. So to keep it as conserved and as possible, not any big developments or any industrial or, storage units is okay. But what will be on the rest of the property? Is it going to be all of that, or just what? That's my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, before you go, can I just get you to clarify a couple of points? You mentioned the road in there. Can you help me understand what your
Oh,
concern with the
well,
road
with
would be?
that property, see, A40 is the turnoff going into Cotton Meadow.
Mhm.
And that road right there, and I don't know what's in the general plan for that road to be extended, but I guess it's in a floodplain area too, with that stream that goes through there. So there might not be plans for development of that road, but if they do whatever they're going to do on that property, that pasture property, where is the road going to go? Is it in the general plan to connect that road over?
Thank you.
So it might not be.
Okay, thank you.
It looks
Yeah.
as if Drew pulled it up. It looks as if it is, but there's no plan in front of us right now to show that road being constructed.
right.
But it looks like it's on the,
Because then you'd have to do a bridge and whatever over that area, so, okay. thank you.
And then, and sorry, I did have one other question. I hate to do, can you just maybe describe for me when you say that you're okay with some storage units, but others would be too much? Can you just help me understand for
Oh.
you where that balance is?
Yeah, I would just hate to see that whole big piece of property in all these storage units, big. I can understand maybe if they do part of it and then put something else in, but I guess, storage units aren't too bad, I guess, in there. I just like to keep the property, but that's not gonna happen,
Yes.
so.
That's very helpful for me. I thank you for
Yeah,
helping me with that.
Yeah, it's a very good view. We love it. Look there. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I come back and just ask a question? Is there a plan, or do you know if there's a plan to extend 840 south? Does
So-
anybody know?
so we don't have the plan. I'm just saying it's
Well,
on, it's on
yeah.
our-
I'm going
it's
to
on
ask
our-
some questions of
So-
staff once the public hearing is over
Yeah.
and get some
Okay,
clarification.
yeah, because that, I would also, I mean, if it's going to go through at some point, I would like to see, because a lot of that area where that road ends, the dirt area that's behind there before the land starts, that's all floodplain area. And I back to that area, and I know when it rains, this area, excuse me. All this area here floods. And so I would ask that there be some type of buffer, so that it's not going over that floodplain area. There's an irrigation canal that runs through there as well. So obviously the road would have to cover that, but I think if you're approving that, approving anything further in regards to the storage units, I think you should have some type of buffer area there, so that they're not sitting back along that area, or at least raised up or something along those lines. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Couldn't even hand the child off to Jeff.
Oh, he's asleep. I'm Raquel Jolly.
No, I appreciate this strategy. If she really gets angry, all she has to do is pinch that baby to make her point.
Thank you.
I just live north. I'm Jeff Jolly's wife. So I just have to kind of agree with just him, just that we like it. We want it to happen for the Jollies. We're related to the Jollies. We're Jollies. We got family here. So we would like it to be possible for them to do this, but just somehow make it an I-1 with only storage units. But I don't know how that works. But that's obviously the next one. So
Great, thank you.
Make it in a week or so.
Take your time, please.
We got time, yeah.
Take my time? You don't want to carry me out?
If you need either, I'm here.
I'm Ken Jolly. I own that property there. First of all, I'd have to say I definitely disagree with the person in real estate. You're talking about a buffer zone. How could you get a better buffer zone between the residential, and you have the creek there, and have storage units as a buffer against that Cass Creek place? How could you have a better buffer?
Well, yeah, the floodplain area is there. I just don't know how far back those are coming. Again, I'm all in favor for people doing with their land. It's their land. If I had my choice, there'd be other options.
And you haven't lived here long enough to see how big a flood goes down that street.
I've seen a lot of
Ken?
it go through there.
How long?
I've been there 11 years. There's been quite a few.
I've been here 83.
Let's have that just addressed. Let's have it addressed to us, Ken. You can talk to him afterwards.
Anyway, I would disagree with that because I think it's a super buffer. That's one of the reasons why we chose
Yeah.
storage units. Thought we were trying to help the city. So
Thank you.
if it was my choice, I'd leave it exactly like it is. And I know that's what she wants to.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tim. Yeah.
And I think there was another question I wanted to respond to.
Uh-huh.
And yes, we know about the floodplain. I definitely think, though, it ought to be changed a little bit. That creek level has risen that much from the creek bottom, that much, ever since they started building above town.
So is this dirt you're saying that's built up in there since it's happened, or is this water?
The
that's risen?
sand has built it up, carried the sand down, deposited it in the grass, and every time it goes up another inch, another inch. And it comes from the construction that comes down the Mill Creek.
So your feeling is that sediment has come from a neighboring property into your property?
Not from the neighboring property, the property above town.
Yeah.
There should have been something done before they let those people tear the things up. I know now they're starting to get some retention ponds, which is going to be a big help. But it takes a lot of retention ponds to recover all that water that comes from the driveways, asphalt streets and everything. That packs all that water down there. Anyway, like I say, I hope it doesn't go till I'm gone, but that's fine. I hope it does too, for my kids' sake.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you
Ken.
very much,
Thank
Ken.
you.
Hello, Councilman. So I just kind of,
What's your name?
oh, I'm sorry, Fernando Zarate. Yeah. And so I live actually just across the street from the Jollies, and our property, our backyard actually faces. So we're like, let's see, right where it says 735 South, we're just south of that. Oh, no, I'm sorry, up north, northwest, right there, with the tramp in the backyard. One more left. There you go. Right there, 202. Yeah, so, again, I mean, I'd like to reiterate a lot of stuff that's already been said, but I do feel like, you know, I'm okay with the idea of storage units. I know that sounds like, you know, the different types of industrial is another meeting. But I mean, it is something where, you know, the older gal that was up here, you know, part of the reason why we bought that property was, you know, because what was behind it. But again, the real estate guy, people should be able to do with their property is, you know, what they want. So I'm all for storage units. I just don't like the idea of, you know, if you drive through those streets, there's 10 kids riding their bikes, doing stuff. And I know sometimes when you bring some of that industrial stuff into the neighborhoods or right there near them, you know, sometimes other stuff comes too. So that's all I got to say, but thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Cheyenne Bentley, and I own a piece of property in Cotton Meadows subdivision. It's right against the creek there, and I kind of echo what everyone else said. I love the view of the field behind my house. It's very serene and tranquil. It's just a nice view. So I do have an issue with storage sheds. I think that sometimes they can be kind of an eyesore, and they're not the most beautiful thing to look at in the world. But I also echo what they were saying. I have concerns with the industrial zone in and of itself. I don't think that it's really, I just have concerns with an industrial right next to a residential zone. It's just concerning for me as a resident that has a home in that area, that I get concerned about what could go there and those kinds of things. And so I guess I'm not for the zone change. I don't know what other options would be, but I kind of also agree with Rod that maybe it would make more sense to just keep it residential. I'm not sure what the possibility of that is, but it does just give me a bit of hesitancy when I learned that the plan was for industrial. So I would hope that you could take that into consideration when voting on that tonight. And I also just kind of want to say that you guys make a lot of motions. And that's coming from me. I work for the county commissioners. So that was very exciting. A lot of motions.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
And it was very exciting for us to see somebody who actually appreciates how emotional we get.
All right, anybody else? If not, I'll entertain the motion to close this public
Mayor,
hearing.
may I ask that we
Absolutely.
maybe keep the public hearing open
Sure.
during our discussion?
Absolutely.
Okay. If no one else wants to start off, I have a few concerns as I look at this. Stepping back, looking at this area in perspective of some recent events that have been happening down in the fields and some proposed future events. Usually within our general plan, we try to stay within 2 zones of a neighboring property. And it's been really unique to see some things that what we have done as a council, and it's really made me think, are we really properly giving our resources to develop in front of us to where we can make better decisions? I'm not opposed to anything that's been said tonight, but I'm in a state of thought. The state of thought where I'm at is we've seen things go from open space to commercial. We've seen things go from, proposed now agriculture to industrial. And I really feel that when we consider the nature of the function, the identity as a city, and especially here in the fields, we have a lot of things being discussed right now concerning our open space, our agriculture, how these things fit together. And I've just felt kind of a remorse of just being in a rush, being in a hurry to get things done just because it's got to hurry. I both respect the rights of the person who wants to develop their property. It's their property. But once we're incorporated into a city, there's a couple of things that make that a little unique because we consider the concepts of everybody's rights. And that's why we have this forum. I'm a little squeamish to go from pasture to industrial, though there is some neighboring industrial to it, and it is close to our industrial park. It comes into a continual conversation with residents next areas where we take significant jumps in zoning change that really change the nature of what these people are invested into around and change it to a very dramatically different concept. And I feel that we owe ourselves a little bit more time and understanding, especially from the perspectives of the landowners and those who are conjoining these properties. My hope is that we can give ourselves some time to really let our studies take into place what we've already started to understand the fields and its nature, because I feel, in a sense, remorse for some of the things we just jumped into because it felt like we needed to hurry. I feel like this process needs more information before we start making huge zone shifts. I think this is more than just a 2-zone shift sort of thing. This is a dramatic change to property and what it can do in the future. Though he may have an intention of doing it this way, if our landowner passes and he says, you know what, I kicked the bucket, I'm not going to have this go on, and he sells it, they'll say, wow, that'd be a great thing for storage units, but I'm going to do this. And once it's zoned like that, it goes that way. It's just something that I feel like we're probably not considering the full picture, and we're rushing into things that really impact where people live.
Thank you, Councilman Clough. As I was listening to those residents that came up, I appreciate very much you coming and sharing your thoughts. We really do appreciate that because it's helpful for us to understand, your side of it. What I would like to talk about or suggest, because the main thing that I've been hearing that was almost repeated by everyone that came up, was that most of you would be okay with storage units, but there's always that consideration that maybe once they get that I-1 zoning, that maybe somebody would come along and buy it and say, okay, we're going to put in something that makes more money. And even though I would never think that would be the Jolly family's intent, that has happened in the city before. So I think that what I'd like to suggest and just have a discussion with the council is something that I feel would help resolve that concern. And that would be to bring forward a, rather than straight zoning, to offer the idea of a PUD industrial zone. And let me share with you, for those of you in the audience that doesn't understand a PUD zone that well, a PUD is negotiable zoning.
So it's a PUD commercial zone, not industrial zone, just to clarify.
It's both.
It's both?
It's both, yeah. It's both. Anyway, so it's basically negotiable zoning. And rather than saying today, we're going to give you the zone that you want and then you bring it forward, what happens is that the city council would approve basically a step at a time. You bring forward what you want and that's approved. Then we'd bring forward, say, a site plan and then elevations and then the landscape plan. So it's kind of approved every step of the way so that it stays in conjunction with what we see that our vision and what the original intent was of the applicant. So a PUD was brought about in Washington for that very reason, to try to accommodate these type situations, because I understand, that I'm like some of you, I would love to see the green fields forever also, but I know that I can't afford to buy all that ground and enjoy the views. So I do appreciate the homeowners' rights, but that's just my 2 cents. And if that plays out, I would feel very good about making a motion for that.
So on that, I would support you in the fact of the PUD, but not the PUD industrial. I think it needs to be the PUD commercial because that fits within our storage units. And we have commercial next to the residential throughout the city. It's pretty common here and there. And with that PUD, it makes it so that we can have, like you said, more look and review process as we go. I don't think industrial is right for this area because of that worrisome. So those are my thoughts on industrial. I know we have industrial across the street, but I always follow the feather rule, is that you feather yourself from a super high dense down to a low dense. And granted, we have a small area between low density and industrial, so we should mix it up with some commercial, in my opinion.
And it's my feeling that if the Jolly family accomplishes what they're trying to do with a PUD commercial, I don't think it really matters as long as they can accomplish what they're trying to do. So I'd be okay with that.
And Councilman Coach, you'd be okay with the storage units?
Yeah, well, mostly because the residents seem mostly okay with it. So, and then that gives us oversight, because then we're not getting storage units that are like tin sheds. Yeah. You get a nice looking storage unit complex that's looked at.
What is kind of helpful for people who are attending tonight, if it does go into a PUD setting rather than a straight zoning, whatever is proposed to be done here will be come back for the council and have to be discussed how it fits and forms within the area, rather than just a straight zone lets them do whatever is available on the list. And so it does offer a little bit of a buffering concept and more conversation within the community and the council if it does go PUD.
Mr. Ellerman, so PUD commercial would allow for storage units, yes?
Yes. Either industrial, it really wouldn't matter. It's just what's going to happen is you would general plan this just PUD. We didn't designate, we just left it as PUD for a general plan designation. Then they come back with an application. So you could call it commercial, industrial. It really won't, you're approving the plan. And so it's going to be, we could, the letter I or C after it really isn't the telltale, it's the design of it.
And I understand that. I just don't want people to think, say they do sell it, it's PUD, hey, I can do industrial. I want to make it very clear that we do not, I don't want it to be industrial. I think commercial.
And that's fine. We could just have it brought in as a PUD commercial. The storage unit is the plan they're proposing. And again, with that, they show the layout of the units. They show, the circulation. They got to show the elevations. They show all those things that would be required in the PUD. The landscaping would all be shown, and that project would be approved as a project.
So you couldn't,
So
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
So I really like what the council's saying here, because I feel like they're really listening to what the residents who are affected, what their interests are, and also the landowner. So this is how it should work. So I like the idea of the PUD. My question is specific about what's on their agenda tonight, which is a land use designation.
Right.
So let's say that this works better for all parties involved to come back as a PUD, whether industrial or commercial. What is the appropriate action to take tonight to get the land use designation for them to come back with that PUD?
Well,
Because
and
it's
that's
for
a good question,
industrial
and it's a good question. I like to explain it because it's a good learning experience. So the council has the right to take, the application is for industrial general plan land use designation. Your planning commission recommended approval of that because they also heard the same things. They didn't want to deny it, but they felt as long as it's storage units, we're good with it going that way, was kind of their overall thing. So what would happen tonight is that the council can sit and say, you know what, we can either accept theirs, we can deny their recommendation, or we can modify their recommendation. That's the options you have. Now, what I've always done in my 20 plus years of this is that I always recommended my councils to ask the applicant if they're okay with that. Because if they're not, then you can say, well, you're not okay and you don't like it, you can just recommend denial. And I mean, that sounds harsh, but that's the process. Or you can ask the Jollies, hey, are you okay with that? And you could even ask, and I appreciate Councilman Ward leaving it open, because you could even have maybe some of the residents, or just ask them, is everybody okay with that by show, whatever you want to do. But then you can get that input. It's mostly getting the, because the application from the Jollies is this. If you want to modify it, I always ask them if they're okay with that. And if they are, then move forward with that. And that's
So just as
totally
an ease of moving forward, could we put a PUD zoning on a business general plan? Like,
yeah, because the
deny the
PUD
zoning today and you just have business, and then they can come back with the PUD to set it on top of it. So the actual zoning is, but you never change the general.
I wouldn't.
So I'm asking if you could.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
I'd rather, because we put the PUD in there for a reason, I don't
Right.
want to circumvent why we did that general plan amendment way back to allow for that. Because again, a lot of developers were asking us, I'd feel a whole lot more comfortable coming to you with a PUD if I knew that was what the general plan. We thought that does give them a whole lot more comfort than the roll of dice saying, well, I know it's designated as whatever it may be, and I'm asking for PUD whatever. That's a harder question. But if you give it a general plan designation PUD, then that tells them you guys are going to entertain not only wanting, but expecting to see a PUD zone change.
Okay.
And so it's a lot more comforting. It's a lot more assuring. Even with the residents, they feel even more secured that they know it's going to be a PUD.
Mayor, if it's okay.
It's right now it's just PUD period. Now, again, we talked about, we know it's not going to be PUD residential. It's going to fall under the commercial industrial side. We have two different sides of the PUD. We have residential or commercial industrial. So we know that it's going to be, generally, it sounds like the Jollies, if they accept your thing and go that, and that's what you're expecting to see is a PUD, whether it's commercial industrial, but it's going to be a storage unit development project. That's what you're expecting to see them bring back as a zone change, would be that.
Well, Mayor, it would be okay if the applicant comes back up here. I would love to hear from Ken after. hearing
Before
some
we
of
go
this,
there, I've got some other questions for staff on the alignment of the property, if we could. So can you just help me make sure I understand exactly where the property lines up on there? 'Cause
Okay, what I'm going to do, and hopefully you're going to get this box, but you try to find the blue line. I'm going to take the road. Now, I brought this up. This blue line is our master transportation plan.
And that's where we're looking to take 840.
840 has got to go across the Jolly property somewhere over to 100 East.
We're looking to shift that from where it currently is.
And right
on
now,
top of
I
those
don't think we
houses.
could follow the blue line through here, because I think these couple of homeowners would not be
Oh, yeah.
appreciative
Oh, that makes sense.
of that. But again, this line has been on there, and it's before Cotton Meadows was actually a subdivision. It just has not been tweaked yet. But you can see we buried it right here because that just knows that it's going. So 840 is going to have to cross the Jolly property somewhere. It's part of the master plan roads. So I wanted to bring that up because somebody referenced that. So let me take that off. Now I'm going to try to highlight out. So this blue line that you see, everything within it. So part of the creek is nobody's land. They call it, what's that term you gave me, Mike, again? Meandering area for creeks and rivers. That's a common thing around creeks and rivers. So they own the triangular area, that you see in blue. If I could take that box off and leave the line, but that's the area we're talking. I know your exhibit it's showing all the different property lines. There's three different ones. They're wanting to do all those, but this is the area that they're asking, basically, is this triangle here.
So sorry, but you're saying that the proposal tonight is for all of them. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. But this
Yes.
is the section that you're saying is where they're looking at putting the storage sheds.
Well, and we haven't seen where they're going to put them because we don't have the plan yet, but this is the area, these are the three parcels. If you take the 1.73, 1.72, and 3.45, that comes up with the 6.9 that is on the proposal.
But those aren't parceled out yet.
These are, I think, that's why they have these up. They own all three parcels, but this is the area that they want to put the designation on.
Well, so
It's not like that at the county, right?
yeah, because the
'Cause they
county,
would've
the
showed-
county
It's
is just
not-
showing what
it's-
you just showed, which is
Right.
which is the
And
one
again,
triangle.
sometimes those lines are not exact. This is more of a legal,
Okay.
probably thing. This one is more exact what it would be. So you're looking at those, the 1.73, 1.72, 3.45 is the area. And again, the Mill Creek area is not owned by anybody, so we can't let anybody do anything on that. And that's the floodplain anyway.
Can you, well, you're not there. Can you jump back to the other and just show me general plan over that?
Absolutely.
I think
Well,
nobody knows
just
this.
hold
plan
on a
better than
second.
Ken.
There's your general plan that shows that blue area is
So it's all
Business.
It's currently all business, butts up to like your description shows.
Yeah, so you
butts
can
up
see
to
that big
industrial,
blue area.
butts
They're
up
just
to-
talking about the top tip up
Yeah.
there.
I see.
And then the industrial's right on the other side of 100 East. And again, just be aware, since I've been here with the city almost 14 years, even before Cotton Meadow came, this has been designated the Jolly property as a business since the general plan was
Yeah.
put in 04 or 05.
Well, so I kind of wanted to bring back to that. So it really is not currently residential. It hasn't been residential for years.
No.
And there is no applicant to bring it to us to be residential. We're really kind of looking at either business or they're asking for an increase to industrial, and we've got some other suggestions.
Yeah, this
here
business
as
was
well.
designated just for someone to go for business park. That would be the only thing they could apply for right now. Straight zoning over would be business park is all that you could do in the blue area. So that's why I told you it was a minor change over the industrial, because your business park is one of your three options in your industrial zone. It's like super light industrial, then you have light industrial, then heavy industrial. That's kind of how that works in the industrial zone.
We're not intending to build storage units on that whole piece.
On which whole piece? I mean, you're not talking down here, but go ahead, let me show them where you,
The storage units will be in this piece right here. Maybe just maybe 20 feet. There's a fence here, only maybe 20 feet. The other is going to stay as it is.
Yeah, and I think, and I appreciate you showing us that. We do get a little bit nervous when we're that close to houses with general zoning, because once you sell it to somebody else and they build it,
We're not going to sell it.
well, I know, but we don't have any control over whether you sell it or not. Once we zone it, then
And
it
I'm
could
not
be
in
sold.
control of that either.
Yeah, so that's just kind of we're trying to make ourselves and citizens feel a little bit better, but really we're just kind of in the conversation phase, the discussion, so. That is very helpful, thank you.
but I'd recommend, I don't want to leave a business on top of that. I'd recommend that we do this whole area of the PUD. Then they have that option later on down the road of coming in, because it's already general plan that way. I don't want to leave it business sitting up there on top.
Yeah.
Just as soon do this whole area that they're asking, if they're agreeable to it, and that's what the council decides.
Staff kind of going here for me. There were some concerns about the floodplain area. I wonder, and maybe you're welcome to have Mr. Shaw come forward if he wants, but to show me, where does the water actually coming from in that area?
It's the Mill Creek Wash.
Mill
That is
Creek.
the
Mill Creek Wash
Creek
comes right
Wash.
through there.
And is there,
When it gets developed, they'll have to do, if they touch that floodplain line, they'll have to do a study on that.
But as you can see by the designation, their property is not in the floodplain.
yeah. So what would the road do as it crosses the wash there?
Now, that would be addressed by engineering, how they're going to do, it could be I guess I shouldn't even say a low-level crossing, but we wouldn't do that. Box culvert would probably go over that. And then the road would go over the box
And
culvert.
is there any concern from staff with the deposits that are being put into the wash there? Not really. Okay, thank you.
So it's within my understanding at this time, there is already a zoning for this. It's a commercial setup. The idea will hopefully be a PUD when the council has talked, so that if there was anything to happen, heaven forbid, something happens and the property changes hands, a PUD would at least ensure the community has more of a voice in what would happen in this, and would also allow the council to have a little bit more say in how it can interact with what's in place.
Yeah, I'll tag on to that if I just may. So if they bring a plan in, they show it's going to be a storage unit business, but yet they end up not building it. The only thing that could go in there, even a subsequent owner at that point, would be the only thing they could do on is that approved storage unit complex, unless they come in and get a different plan approved. That's the beauty about PUD. You know what's going to go there, and if it doesn't go in there, someone has to bring in something different and get it approved for it to go on there.
So are we wanting to bring the applicant back forward to ask him if
I would
he is
love to
okay
start
with?
finalizing some thoughts, if that's
Ken, could you
okay.
come back up here? Or Susan, one of the two?
Both.
You have that leeway by law to just amend the request. We just never done it. The applicant, the landowner themselves wanted that, thought that was a good idea, so.
Ken, can I just clarify a few quick things with you? One of the things I appreciate in this conversation is we appreciate you being a landowner in our city. This is very important. It appears that you're looking forward to doing a storage unit in the upper part of this property at this time. Sorry, in that part of the property.
The
over
southern
there.
part.
Yeah, you want to do a storage unit right now. And a lot of the citizens it seemed like that is an okay thing with the citizens as it is being spoken. A lot of the concerns with the citizens and the council is if we shift to a different thing outside of commercial and let it kind of be the industrial, it becomes that part where if this were to transfer out of your property, it can be used to do industrial at that point. Though you have your word at this time, which is beautiful in your lifetime, something could change. Council seems to be okay with the concept of, well, I'm only speaking and I apologize how I'm saying council. I'm feeling okay towards listening to how the residents and how you've talked of pursuing the concept of doing storage units and everything in there. If we could have a concept of maybe, would you be open to having a PUD commercial zoning happening with the intent of you being able to do residential storage in that area as we make our amendment to what you've been asking to tonight?
I'm not quite sure. Residential storage?
Well, you've talked about doing storage. Is this a residential storage or anything outside of, what kind of storage is this? Is that a fair thing to ask? I'm thinking residential storage, like I'm moving out of a house into there, or is this like industrial storage? I don't know. She might be able to help.
We're good about the PUD. The PUD would protect them, but it would also protect us too.
Is that an okay
Yes.
where we're at?
Yes.
And I think with what's been said tonight, finding that happy balance to where you can continue to develop your property, they can continue to enjoy the quality of life which they have right there. There's just the fear that it could be something besides the storage unit, which I think is a valid concern to bring up.
And one of the reasons we went storage units again, we've thought of this, but you can see my cows out there in the field. Right there where that car's going by in that southwest corner, who would want to have a residential home there?
I know.
With across the street, that heavy industrial.
I think you have a very valid point. I think you're right.
We could make more money selling it, dividing and building homes, but I don't think so.
Well,
Where it's located.
what I love about what you just said is what you would like to do with your property, which is one of my top concerns right now, is what do you want to do with your property and how does that work within our city? So thank you for clarifying that. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, well, we try to think of what's best for the city and to satisfy.
It should be what's best
kids'
for you as
needs.
well. I think that's a fair thing to hope as a property owner, that there should be something in it for you if you own property. So I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you for letting us know. Any other council questions? That was mine.
No, I want to thank you as well. I think that you've been very workable with the community and we can accomplish everyone's goals. So
And just, my name's Sue Gates. I'm his daughter, but we're just starting on the south side and then moving forward, but we're keeping the farm, that fourth. That's why it was divided.
Right.
So that farm part will stay as far as we're concerned, but we have the 3/4 of it. And we were just going to start on the south. So it wouldn't be a huge change right off.
We
We
completely
hope they
respect
will allow us
both.
to do it in.
Incremental.
Oh, yes.
You know, I completely respect both keeping the identity and the change, that as long as it's something that makes sense, that's something we should support. And thanks for clarifying that.
I wonder if you're going to get rid of that corral rental business.
Where would the
Why would
turkeys
you do
go?
that? And where would the turkeys go?
Your corral rentals, your fences.
You know how many people have told me, don't ever get rid of that? May I ask which one of those homes is yours?
You see where 840 South is? Where the road ends?
Uh-huh.
there? I'm the second house in.
That was my hay ground. I didn't want to sell it either.
I've been throwing rocks at those cows.
Have you?
Thank
Good.
you.
If they're down there bothering, they should have rocks thrown at them.
Any other questions for the Jollies? Okay, thanks, you guys. Anybody else?
Yeah, Loretta Jensen again. I think this is great. And I want, there was a little inkling I heard of mentioning maybe zoning that whole farm property. No, I think we need to stick to that one lot right now. And then as time comes, deal with the farm property. Let's keep it. Don't make any changes there, but I agree with what's being said, to the commercial, PUD commercial.
Yeah, the only part that we're talking about is just what the Jollies had before us tonight. Mayor?
Anybody else? I am going to close the public hearing. Well, I'm going to entertain a motion to close the public.
May I make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Clough, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Coates, aye.
Mayor, with your permission, I would make a motion.
This is a 2-week.
Oh, is it a hold? It's still?
Yeah, it's a 2-week holdover.
I'm sorry, my mistake.
But I think it would be nice of you to let those who are here know when it'll be back up.
Yeah, this will be back up in 2 weeks.
For a vote.
So for a vote. Not a public hearing, just the vote.
Thank you for coming out.
So that's the second week in March, April, February, March. Oh, that's 2 weeks. Okay, February 26th, Ken, Susan. If you want to, yeah. We would prefer it.
Awesome.
So this is just the public hearing. The next is the voting on the motion.
Okay, item B, public hearing for consideration to grant an additional height waiver, request HW-20-01 for a detached garage at 22 feet 10 inches, located at 329 West Granite Drive, Cobblestone Phase 2, Lot 36. Applicant JT Homes.
Well, Mayor, I'll just get this kind of going for the applicant to come up and do their case. The applicant is seeking, again, a waiver for the height on this detached accessory structure. The maximum allowable height on detached accessory structures, trying to take advantage of falling within the setback area, is 20 feet. As stated, the applicant's building is measuring out at 2210. I'd like to be a little generous and give an extra 2 inches on the thing if that's what the council feels to do so. I feel generous today, so with that, but also just for the council's information and also for the public, the city amended its zoning regulation several months ago by allowing greater heights for accessory buildings such as this if the property owners can move their proposed structures inward into the lots. And for every foot they add from that 3 foot on the rear and the side, they get to add a foot to the height. So if they move it in 4 feet, they can go to 21, 5 feet off each one, they can go to 22, and you can do the math. So I just wanted to point that out for the council on that, if possible, maybe negotiate that as well. So
Is that proposed in front of us? Because I could not read this map.
I know the map, I tried to zoom in on it and it's way blurry. We'll ask the hopefully the applicant knows exactly what those numbers are.
I just am,
So
yeah, I just
I
want
had
some
the
more
same problem
clarification.
tonight. I was
on
trying to
that.
zoom in and I had the original plans, but yeah, sometimes when you download something, when it's too small of a scale, then it blurs the number. So we'll ask them to come up. Hopefully they have that number. The biggest number I think I'm worried about, of course, is this blurred number between the house and the proposed structure. I'd like to know what that number is with this particular project. So we'll invite the applicant up at this time or his representative.
Well, no, we're on 6B.
I'm glad I brought this because I
Wait.
was just gonna bring the small one. So hopefully I can read it. I believe it's 10 feet from the house to the garage, and even that's hard to read.
So it's 10 feet there, but what about against the wall? Because
This is all,
we're bringing it in 3
Yeah,
feet.
so we took this into the city and Craig did a great job and he's approved all that. The height's what he caught. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Jeremy Tobler with JT Custom Homes. Jeremy Tobler with JT Custom Homes. So we took this to the city and Craig did a great job and he discovered that we were higher than what we should have been. And then he brought that to Drew's attention and so that's why we're here.
So is this existing?
No, the house is, yes, but not the
But not
detached.
the, okay, so we are 3 feet away from the wall now?
Yeah.
And so that gave us the additional 2 feet because we came up, right, Drew?
No, he's at 3 feet. The maximum's 20 feet. So that's why there's a difference of 2 feet and 10 inches is what he's asking for.
But we're asking for a variance because we're not shifting it in?
We're not shifting it all. He's asking for a 2 foot and 10 inch. I'm just saying make it three even is what he's asking for. And so I was just saying that if it's possible to move it,
Jeremy?
this way or that way, it might help.
So on the setbacks from where this detached structure is to the house, what's the distance? Is it already at 10 feet
Yeah,
then?
it's
So there's no
already
room
10,
to move it
right.
in at all?
Right, and we can't really move it to the east either.
You can move it along the back is what it would be.
But does it get any further away from the house? Because I'm just trying to figure out a way to get us a little close. I mean, I want to just see how close we can
Yeah.
get you there by where you set it on the site
Yeah,
plan.
and I don't think the homeowner wants to move the structure at all. I think he's really set and just leaving it where it's at.
But would it do anything, even if we did move it, would you get any, I mean, even if you did move it one way?
Well, they have, this way, we don't want to break the 10 feet because that's kind of falls under our.
Right.
code. So it couldn't move this way, you know, if that's how.
But you see the driveway, he
At
wants
least
to
that
come.
picks up between this property, or gives them a little relief. The one in the back is not going to get in. And it's because they can't push it toward the house.
And it's tough because the lot is fairly small, and so I see that, you know, he wants to be able to drive his
Well, they're
vehicle
good-sized
in there
lots, but yeah.
without having to turn too much and go around the back of the house and get in and out of there with whatever he wants to park there. Why the height? Why does it need to be 2 feet, 10 inches higher than code?
He's just basically looking for the height in the garage so he can fit a boat a little bit more comfortably. He's looking for the garage door heights, what's really coming down to.
And so that he's got that truss plan kind of maxed out on the, what is
Yeah.
the pitch of the?
And the pitch is, I believe it's just it's a 512, but what we're trying to follow is also the design of the original house. And so that's why the pitch is what it is.
Just stand.
So Drew, let me understand this. I saw the position of where this is at in relation to the other house. It looks like you could move it along the property line away from the home, right? But you can't move it closer to the home due to our fire restrictions.
Correct. Or
So-
you take a foot off the length of the building, but that's.
So our options are either you could take a foot off the length of the building or scoot it over a little bit. If he moved this 2 or 3 feet or 5 feet, would he be able to get that just by moving it what he needs to do?
No, because he's not meeting the back one, you know, just moving it one way this way
Right.
doesn't constitute, so
So-
that would take that, you know, what it would take for them to get the foot relief, they have to go an extra foot both directions.
Okay,
You know, so they have the room to do.
you'd have to basically shrink the size of the building, is what you're saying then.
Right, and so that's why, you know, they're there here tonight because they can't go anywhere to the south. They could, looks like, the backyard I see right now, I don't know, is that a in-ground trampoline or a?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to
50-50.
understand is what I'm seeing is, and I think I heard it, and if I'm wrong, I want the clarification. If they were to remove a front foot off the building and a front foot off the side, or wherever that's at,
Push it to the
push
east.
it, right? And you shrink that footprint just a foot, would he even need a variance?
Yes, he would.
But would he be able to make that variance? Like, I'm saying it's not, I'm trying to find how significant this is.
So I'm looking at this and I look at it as it's a small significance. Yes, it is above our height and it's 3 feet, But if you look at, it's not taller than the existing structure.
Exactly.
So
It's matching.
the thing that the biggest thing I'm concerned about is just to make sure the roof is not hanging over the lot line, which at 3 feet, you're fine. Because your eave's only gonna be 1.5 feet, 2 feet. Where's your eve at? Because we're talking to the building face and then we have the eave of the roof. Yeah,
The soffit and the fascia there. I mean, it's just I believe it's just a 12-inch.
yeah, so there's still 2 feet to the wall of the house.
Another thought to just bring into this is that it's an existing home in an existing neighborhood, and this was properly noticed. And we're at a public hearing, and none of the neighbors have come to speak against.
That we know of yet. We haven't had a
Well,
chance.
we haven't opened the public hearing.
So if there is any neighbors, I just wanted to.
Yeah,
we hadn't
good
done it
point. I'm
yet.
saying public
So
hearing
there might
has
be
not been
someone out
opened,
there.
but if they're all lined up out there, but I don't see any, which gives me some more.
I'm a neighbor and I vote yay.
Can you put your house on? I'm just teasing.
I'm right across the street, so I'm.
Now, Drew, can
We're just teasing
as a
Jeremy.
validation, is it true that this matches the existing ridge point of the home right now? Is it higher than the home that is adjacent to the structure?
No, the home's almost a 2-story. What it is a single level, but it has a second floor that's incorporated into the roof.
Right.
So technically, it's got 2 floors. It's a fairly good sized home.
Okay. Appreciate the discussion. Any other conversation?
No, I have no.
Yeah, it's-
Was the staff, I mean, and usually these are zoning issues, but you don't have a suggestion on here. You're,
Not when it comes to these height waivers, unless I really feel really uncomfortable, then I probably say I can't buy off on this one. This one I don't have. You know, like I said, if it was possible, it'd be nice if they could move it a foot just to help, you know, but I know they can on the back. Because they got 10 feet from the house, the building itself, 3 feet.
Well, looking at that picture, it looks like they already have their slab sitting there, so you don't want to push it too far, else you're adding.
Yeah, no, I think that,
You still got to rip that out.
yeah, that's all gotta be pulled.
I didn't know if they had poured that and then came back and was.
I think it's a
thought about it.
pickleball. It's the
Oh,
beginning of a
was it?
pickleball and then they
Okay.
changed direction.
Thank you.
So no bolts in yet.
Yeah, no.
This is a public hearing. Are we done with Jeremy? Sorry, Jeremy, I don't want to be done with you, but thank you very much. Yeah,
Hold on.
if no additional questions, like I said, this is a public hearing. Anybody that want to make a comment or suggestion? It looks not, so I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Do a roll call vote.
Coates, aye.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Tough eye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you. We'll move on to item
So,
7 then.
Mayor, on this kind of item where we had no discussion, is it appropriate to request that we approve this on tonight? Because,
You have to tonight.
Yeah.
You only
it's-
chose the 2 week on general plan amendments and
All
zone
right.
changes, so it is an action item tonight.
Isn't that what item 7 is?
oh, that's what 7 is?
Yeah.
Oh,
Item 7, additional height waiver, consideration to approve the height waiver request HW 20-01 located at 329 West Granite Drive, Cobblestone Phase 2, Lot 36. Applicant JT Custom Homes. I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, if there's no discussion, I will make a motion for item 7A, consider to approve the height waiver for request HW-20-01 located at 329 West Granite Drive, Cobblestone Phase 2, Lot 36.
Second.
Motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Tough eye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Coates, aye.
All right, that's approved. Thank you, Jeremy. Item 8, ordinance continuation of a consideration to approve an ordinance to amend the height regulations. Here we go. Sections 9-8D-4, 9-9-4, 9-10A-4, 9-10B-4, 9-10C-4, 9-11-4. Drew.
Is there any discussion? We've talked about this at length. I had another word, but I won't use that word. We've talked this at length. I hope that we're ready unless you had any other questions you had for me. Again, we're trying to raise just the standard height in multifamily from a 35 to 42 feet, and for the commercial industrial from 35 to 45 feet. And just make that will be the standard height. Anything above that will still come before you in a height waiver like you just had on buildings that are taller than that. And
So are we correct in assuming that staff recommends approval?
Absolutely. And your planning commission, or did I say that too?
No, that was
Too, okay. Yeah. And the planning commission and staff will work together on this and come up with the numbers to present to you. So the planning commission, even Councilman Coates was Commissioner Coates at that time. And if he can even give you how the planning commission felt about it at that time. But I know that it's very supported by staff and your planning commission.
Well, Mayor, if there's no further discussion.
I'm just going to reiterate my point, which is that some of these are some of the most divisive conversations that happen within our city. There's zoning out there that this will touch, that when that zoning was put in place, that the council members understood the height that would incorporate, and changing that on a kind of unilaterally, I'm uncomfortable with. I also think that this is a good opportunity for the council to meet with citizens and their concerns. We're in a phase right now where some of our solutions is going to be going up. And I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I am opposed to not having the discussion in specific instances. I think we can learn a lot about our city and the way we are growing, because we are changing the way Washington City is growing. So I would just reiterate my point of, I don't see the need to change it. Let's continue to hear from the citizens, and let's hear all the good reasons why we should increase height waiver and pass them as they come along.
Well, within that, Councilman, what I appreciate what you're saying is that we do need to be involved in that process. And I feel that addressing a little bit that within the exact zonings as they've highlighted in this, where within this zone, it's appropriate here, within this zone, it's appropriate here. I think those things show council, as far as I've experienced it so far, in these particular areas. I don't feel like it's a straight wash as a unilateral, everyone gets the same thing. I like the concept how it addresses the needs within particular zoning. And if there's something that supersedes within that zoning, it comes back before the council at that point. So I guess one part I'm just trying to understand is if we approve this, it feels as though it has a council voice in a lot of things as I've read through them. Is there a particular one that you disagree with, which was been proposed?
Well, it's not necessarily a particular one. It is raising it in a unilateral manner that doesn't give you the chance to actually understand that specific instance in a specific area and how it will affect other citizens.
Well, is the zoning, you feel, not a significant kind of a, how do I say it, like a predictable outcome of what could be happening in that area? Within the zoning, it should be able to meet things within this particular height.
No, it just has more to do with we're changing, and I think that in many cases we do need to change. And I actually like the idea of encouraging developers to not build right up to the top and then square it off and just leave a raw air conditioning unit or something up there. But I would like to have those conversations. I think because of those conversations, we have had better products come out of here. I can point you to a couple of different situations where they came with us with some height that was just almost ridiculous. But after we had a chance to talk to them, they kind of got a better sense of where we were, and we got a better product in our city. I have, just like the conversation we had tonight with the PUD zoning, that to me is going to end up a much better project because we all got together and we talked about it. And I'm just all for that.
So you feel that as a council, you don't feel like it's okay to release this into an interpretation from staff, but prefer it to come before staff as a council for the time being?
I enjoy the education that I and the council gets with having applicants come to us with heights so that we can understand their needs and the needs of the area and approve them as it sees fit. And once we have enough of those under our belt to say, hey, we're just seeing these all the time, then let's change the zoning. But to me, it's still a influx as far as the new heights that are coming to us and the solutions that are coming to us that incorporate height.
So
and that's what I'm trying to understand is I really appreciate how you just said that, because when I read through these and going through a couple of these and getting them under our belt, I felt like a lot of those like reflected what we had been giving. And I'm really trying to understand your position, because I admire your insight when we've done a lot of these things. You're absolutely right on some things you can point us to quickly where it was good we had this. That's why I was asking if there was one specifically within this modification that you felt was just, we'd rather have that power within the council, or are they all just not appropriate?
It's not even that they're not appropriate. It's that the city is changing. We are seeing more height applications coming to us, and it is a part of the solution for affordable housing and for other different applications within the city. I'm learning a lot, and I think the developers are learning a lot within these conversations.
See, and I appreciate the input. I look at it as we have these zones and we've got to prove these zones, and the height meets what the zone requires. And so I feel like, why are we making them come to us when it meets what I have a good feeling on it. And I like these zones because it makes sense to me to just have, hey, if you're going to be a multifamily, you can go to 42 feet. I don't think it's out of control. It's not like we said 55 feet. There's some that you could. And I know a lot of commercial zones would allow 55 in the surrounding areas. And we're like, no, let's keep it lower. And I really just like that we're bumping it up to where it probably should be, and we'll cut off some of those that are just okay. And if there's one that's way large, then yes, then we'll see it. So that's how I look at it. That's why I approved it in Planning Commission, and I really like how Drew has set this up moving forward. And in a year or so, if it's not working, you can always reevaluate the ordinance.
So am I understanding this, anything that would be superseded above these height restrictions within each one of these zones would have to come in for a height variance at that point too, correct? If they said, oh, we don't like that, we want to.
Yeah, let's say someone has a family project and they want to go to 47 feet for whatever
reason
the design is. They come before you for that height waiver of the 5 feet.
You mean 42, right?
No, I'm saying if they came in at 47, they would come before you. Now, if they come in at 42, their plan, they still go through their conditional use permit.
Right.
We look at that, they still got to get those approved. So 42 is they don't have to come and spend the extra meeting, to come before the city council. But if they want to go above that, then that's a decision they're making. We want to keep it at 47 because that's what we want our building. We're going to go before the city council and ask for the 5 feet.
Right. And
the
I
action that's
anticipate-
before you right now is effectively to modify each of these zones and increase the height on each one.
Exactly. So I was wondering if there was a particular zone that you felt uncomfortable with doing that, because I feel we all agree that going up in a lot of these areas, what's been proposed is still appropriate within the zone. And that's the part where I'm trying to throw out my bias and say, well, if I look at this zone, is it appropriate to have this height? And as I've gone through these, I personally don't have a concern about how it's proposed in each zone, because I think it's been very tailored to each zone. We'll still have to do a lot of height conversations to come.
Well, so maybe I can explain it to you this way. I think that right now we have people who live in homes and live near the zones that are already there, who are already going to be surprised at the height at which people can already build on things that are already zoned next to them now. I think that they're going to say to themselves, wow, I knew that this was this zone, but wow, I'm surprised at how high they can already go. And so moving it up, moving it up unilaterally, I'm more comfortable with just saying, yeah, come in and talk to us.
Any other discussion? Did you want to continue your motion, or?
I see where it falls. I appreciate the conversation, because the passion which Councilman Ward does things in is he's very specific, and he offers great insight on things. I feel like I'm going to continue with my motion, and we'll see where it goes. But in full respect of what's been said tonight. Well, my motion is to approve the ordinance to amend the height regulations sections 9-4, 9-8D-4, 9-9-4, 9-10A-4, 9-10B-4, 9-10C-4, and 9-11-4.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Coates, aye.
Ward, nay.
Ivy, aye.
Clough, aye.
Staley, nay.
Okay, that passes 3-2. Item 9, agreement. Consideration to approve an agreement from Sitla to Washington City for 1.168 acres, known as the Mill Creek Trailhead.
Hey, Mayor, I just wanted to make I looked at the regulation. I forgot to mention at the start that Sidla is a client, but I had nothing to do with this. I don't even know about this until I read this. I'm just making that clear. This had nothing to do with me.
Thank you, Mayor.
So noted
Thank you, council members.
and so recorded.
So this is I put in your packets, the executive summary, which explains what this is for the Mill Creek Trailhead easement. Also in there is the Sitla application, which we did and turned in, and then also the easement documents from Sitla and Jeff Starkey that has gone over those, and then the exhibits. If you have any questions on those, or I'm here to answer them.
So Barry, it's just a one-time fee for the $750 to
Yeah,
get the easement, and then
yeah,
there's no continuation things
no,
we need with
that's
Sitla.
just a fee to do that, and that's been done.
And that's a standard fee that Sitla has on all their easements is a minimum $750.
Near the other land, to some great extent, it benefits their remaining land also, that they have a public use like this. It makes sense for both parties.
Can we just have it put up on the screen there for us?
And Barry, would you mind talking just as to what this will do for those trails? I mean, what does this trailhead mean
So it's
for our
what-
community?
What this is, so right now, if you go up all the way up Main Street and you hit the Desert Reserve, there's a fence there that goes in the Desert Reserve that you can't take any vehicles in. So right now, right just south of that, which before you go into the Desert Reserve, people are just parking there. That's private property. It's owned by, I'm not sure who owns it, but city doesn't own it. City doesn't own it. And so eventually that'll be developed, and those people that are parked there to go into the Desert Reserve, to go on all those trails, to go to the Elephant Arch and all that area, they won't have any place to go. So looking forward, we wanted to make sure that that's taken care of. We looked at this. There's an area in there that falls within the reserve that is still property, and so it still gives it that easement. We can actually do that in there. I've already talked met with the Desert Reserve, matter of fact, Mike and Cameron are in favor of this. I've been to the technical committee and talked to them, and where it's still a property, not that they don't have any jurisdiction over that. And so with this application, with that easement, we would be able to go in there and put a trailhead in there for great benefit.
Clear,
to the
this
city.
actually moves, this is actually currently behind the tortoise.
Yes. Yes. So we'd have to, yeah.
Kind of get misrepresentation from their land. But
Mhm.
could have been put on the other side of where Barry,
Yeah.
trailhead is located.
That was a very nice thing to learn.
Sorry, what was that?
It was a nice thing to learn. We didn't know
Oh, yeah.
that
Yeah.
until we were trying to do.
So any idea where the actual tortoise preserve starts in relationship to those red and yellow lines right there?
So so really, the Desert Reserve, they don't own this property. They don't own what the shell line. This falls in the reserve. It's in the property. Perfect. So it works out there. Makes sense?
So
a water pump on the.
though the reserve starts on the south side of that, they don't own the property until the north side of it. Okay.
Well, it's good because the current parking that's not, is being eroded away, literally.
Yeah.
Because that's being carved out of the water.
Yeah, that will be gone.
Yeah.
That will be gone down the road. So,
Barry, has there been any, I mean, knowing you like to collaborate with people and get people involved in things. Has there been any talk about people getting involved and helping? Or are we just going to cover the cost? Are you at liberty to talk about that at
sure,
all?
sure. We're going to apply for a grant. There's a grant for this.
Great.
And also, I've also talked to the county. Interested in, also, I don't know to what amount, but we're going to try to do what we can for that, for funding for both those areas.
Yeah, that'll be great.
But this is just for the easement. That'll come on later.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Barry? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So I'll take a stab at a motion. Item 9A, which is to approve an easement from Sitla to Washington City for 1.16 acres known as the Mill Creek Trailhead.
Second?
A motion is second. We'll do a roll call.
Staley, aye.
Clough, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward eye.
Coates, aye.
All right. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Anything to report from your assigned committees? I
So-
failed to report, may I, on the MPO, we did not meet last month. So we tabled everything until this month.
Mayor, where it's legislature's in session right now, I'll just take a minute and bring you up to date on some of the more, well, there were things that were interesting to me, but also has some relevance to our city. The first thing is the daylight savings proposal is going on for 10 years. We don't see that passing. HB 118. I believe Council Starkey gave an analogy about if you ask the girl out 10 times, 10 years in a row, are you going to ask her out 11 times? Which knows. Anyway, HB 118 has to do with retail tobacco specialty shop. And what it is it's talking about creating a buffer zone between schools, churches, anywhere that children, multiple children would be. And it's more involved in that, but there is a fiscal note on it from the House Rules Committee, but that just means that they're going to cost analysis to see whether or not it's going to cost money or make money. HB 185 was the tax restructuring revision. And as you know, that was highly publicized and it was repealed. The governor signed it and it's being filed. HB 265 is the Government Records Transparency Act, and our own Representative Seg Miller is the one that sponsored that bill. Then HB 304 is a citizens feedback program from each executive branch to gather feedback from citizens. And this is something that, as I read, I felt that it is exactly what I think we try to do here. And that is that we want our decisions to reflect what our citizens want. And so we have to create those avenues to get those back. Some other things that just really quickly, some other bills, clean and renewable energy requirements, genetic info amendments, I think that has to do with like 23andMe stuff, noise pollution, DUI liability, tinted windows, electric vehicle, charging stations, transient room tax provisions. Those are just some other bills that are going forward. But if any of you are interested in following those, there's an excellent website where you can actually track each bill through and follow it and where it's at. And the Utah League of Cities and Towns does a great job in presenting information on those on daily updates. And it's been very informative for me.
Thank you, Councilman Coates. Did you have anything? I interrupted you. And I didn't
Oh,
mean to.
well, I was, last night was our first meeting for the Washington County Solid Waste Board. And it was an interesting meeting in the fact that there's a lot of members. So, but a couple of notes that I wanted to address is that there is the contract negotiations for the solid waste coming up for all three of their departments. So that's something that I know that the executive committee is working on with that solid waste board. And so I think we should get with the adjacent cities and we'll just kind of work that out and figure out how we're going to negotiate those contracts moving forward. So.
Councilman Ward.
So.
Councilman Ward. Anything to report? Councilman Clough.
Yes. Yes, just a little bit. The Transportation Expo yesterday was very helpful, and I stopped by and spoke with our good neighbors in the city of St. George who we're partnering with on bringing Suntran to Washington City. This is route number 7. And I just wanted to let you know that earlier I told you that it's on track to come in with the next month too. And the route will start at Deseret Industries. It will head east past Costco, head north, and take a right turn from that intersection on 3050 East in St. George onto Telegraph Street in Washington. It'll go all the way down Telegraph with a few stops downtown, take a left on 1100 East, circle back through hitting the community center, the library, under the freeway on Main, and pick up some of our good citizens on the north side of the freeway, come back down Green Spring Drive, and loop back to Deseret Industries. It's about a 40-minute loop. There's been a lot. This has been a long time coming. There's been a lot of discussion. Councilman Ward and Councilman Clough are heavily involved in this, and now this is coming to fruition. The thing that worked out well with this was the funding fell into place to where this is not a tax decision that we made, that the city made, but the funding came in to where we could offer this service. So it's a good thing. It's about a 40-minute route. We've got a little bit of work to do on some of the turnouts at some point along Telegraph, but I think this will serve our citizens well. And, I look forward to trying
When
it
was the
out.
last time the route was changed? It hasn't changed recently, has it?
So I know that the officials at Suntran with the city of St. George have worked really closely with our city manager and our public works director, and they've really tried to vet it. I mean, obviously, there's probably a few little kinks to work out, but once they get this route set, they typically don't really like to change those. But I know that along the process, the city has taken public input for those who have asked for this and who will use it. And in fairness, especially along that east side near the Parkway, there are a lot of multi-unit housing projects. And this allows individuals to not only get over to Walmart, to get to Costco, to get to Deseret Industries, but it also allows them to transition them to other routes, to get to a hospital or to other areas for work or whatever it may be. So, these are the tough decisions, but we didn't make the tax decision. But when those above us made the tax decision, we were able to implement their decision into offering this service to our citizens. So it'll be a good thing, and look forward to seeing that on this side of town. I think our citizens will appreciate it. I have the map if anybody wants to take a closer look.
Okay, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just go over a few projects. We are anticipating in the month of March bringing back the irrigation study for the council to give you an update on that. Regarding stormwater, the gypsum rehab basin, that progressive contracting was
Manager?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you were talking about irrigation.
Yeah.
Can you make some of our citizens downtown are concerned about planting their gardens and getting the flood irrigation. Could you
Yes, I will.
maybe
And I'll get
touch
to
on that?
because we are going to touch on that. So on the gypsum rehab, we're expecting about 6 months to complete. Caldwell Wash is about 70% completed right now. Those are on our stormwater issues. There's stormwater issues, of course, on Main Street, but we haven't started those projects yet. I'll just jump right down to that irrigation issue. They are working on the gravity-fed irrigation right now because, again, this is an interesting transition. We're laying in pressurized lines, of course, but we're also we'll have enclosed and we'll have gravity. It is right now anticipated that all citizens will be gravity-fed by the time their irrigation starts, which is about March. So that is the plans, and that has been a high priority for our contractors to make sure that the water is available so we're saying right now that they can go ahead and plant on their gardens. So
That'll make Mrs. Worthington very happy.
yeah, the irrigation has actually been one of the more complicated portions of it because we have these kind of several parts of irrigation, but it has been an important part of our downtown. So thank you for the question. We would tell them, go ahead and plan on, and Mike, now I've said this now twice, so it better come true. Plan on their gardens anyway, so.
If there's any questions with them, please have them call.
And not just that, but even in,
It's changing daily.
Yes, but I would also say, correct me if I'm wrong, because you and I've talked about this just the last few days, and I don't want to misspeak here, but, even where those ditches are not quite fixed, we will get irrigation water to those homes, if that happens to be the case. Yeah, so I think we've got the options to get the water there, even if we're not quite right on schedule with certain things, water can get there. Merrill Road will be opening tomorrow. So.
What time?
Well, we were scheduled to open at 9, but somebody scheduled to be a meeting at that, so we're gonna probably try to do it about 8:45.
Now, that announcement, of course, is going to be a shock to a number of residents because they think Merrill Road opened a week ago. And we've been messing with that for a week, but anyway, we're excited about it.
We thought it opened yesterday.
Yeah, well, we drive down whether we knew it was open or not.
Doesn't the mayor have to ride his bicycle across it before
He
it's
should,
officially
yeah.
open?
It's frustrating as it was on occasions, and all capital projects are frustrating for us, but on occasions, but the road is a beautiful road. And only, I guess, city officials can say, next to substations, that's a beautiful road. Milepost 11, we've talked about this before. It's still open for public comment. I don't know exactly the close day on that. Washington Parkway, the mayor and I tried to go down this direction the other day. It was a little bit busy, but Washington Parkway, the subgrades are completed. You can drive down. If you go up Washington Parkway, you can kind of drive down again and see how they've cut that in. That looks great. The culvert, the box culvert right up at the end, they poured the floor. And they're framing up the sides and preparing to pour the sides of the big box culvert.
Sorry, which one's that on?
It's on Washington Parkway up to Green Springs. So, and the box culvert is way up at the end of Green Springs. So you'd have to drive all the way up to the end of that big ravine up there to see that. Let's see, we need to worry about that. Staley Substation, control building walls have been installed. The roofing and truss work and everything will start next week. Retaining walls are being put in. The ground grid is about 90% complete on that. And the below ground conduits are all completed. Well, yeah, pretty much completed. The regulatories and transmission poles will arrive next week. You can already see some of the framing coming up. And again, the nice thing about that substation now is we'll be masonry walling, not that old, terrible fence. The transformer is anticipated to be factory tested on the 25th and then shipped after that. So that project's, moving along really good and should be online before high demand season, so that substation can get back online. We're good with load. If it gets delayed, which I don't think it will at this point, we're good with load. We can still handle load. The Green Springs Park, the basin's been essentially cleared with equipment in there and they'll be preparing the irrigation and other things for that area. And the boilers project is underway as well.
So the Green Springs Park, the basin is just cleared at this point.
Yeah, they've cleared all the rock.
Yeah.
So essentially, just the design there is the rock will remain on those highly pitched outer edges. So the rock will stay there. You really can't do much anyway. You couldn't put grass there very well. It's just you've got such a high pitch. And then where it transitions from the park itself, the current park itself on the north side, there will be a large swath, of course, at the most shallow place of the grass, so people can kind of, get down that direction into the rest of the grass field. So you'll still have some of that rock along the edges. A couple other things. We talked about the trip to Corvallis to see the carbon-free project. Really excited about this. This is again April 1st and 2nd, which is a very tight schedule, but it's also to try to accommodate all of you that have those busy schedules. Our anticipation is that we would try to go out of St. George on the 6 a.m. flight, and because of that, we would like to get those booked as quickly as possible to make sure that we can get those accommodated. Basically, we'll be flying up. We'll be picking the 8:30, 8:45 flight out of Salt Lake to Portland. Then from Portland, they'll bus us down to Corvallis. We'll spend all day that day doing that. Next day, we're heading home. So, and we'll get home about on the 2nd at about 10 o'clock, 10:15 flight in the evening. So it's a quick trip, but I like the way it's condensed because you're still going to get the opportunity to see the mock-up of the carbon-free project. You'll get to meet Dr. Reyes, who's the one who owns all the patents on the safety features of the small modular nuclear, and it'll just be absolutely fantastic for you to be up there on site. What I do,
Will we be able to use the little arm to reach down into the heavy water to move some rods around?
yeah, we'll do something like that. We'll tell you it's heavy water. So because of that, I'm going to ask the council if they could by tomorrow, and I'm going to have you send this to Denise, if it's okay. Would you confirm this for us by tomorrow? And what we need to have from you is your name as it appears on your ID. These are to book the tickets. So driver's license, whatever your name is, your date of birth, and if you have a Delta frequent flyer mile, will you please add that as well? So if you'll get that to tomorrow, we don't want to delay too long because otherwise we're going to not have the accommodation coming out of Salt Lake or St. George like we want to. Also, I think the mayor said noon on Monday we'll be leaving. Do you want to do it at noon? And we'll just pick you up. That's usually easier than have you all drop your cars off unless you want to. But we can just swing by your home if you want. Pick you up at noon to head to the legislature. We'll plan on all day Tuesday on the Hill. Now, what you do need to understand is usually Tuesday afternoons, usually in the afternoons, they start going into committee meetings and then it drains off pretty quickly. Traditionally, we've had the UAMPS reception on Tuesday evening in the Capitol boardroom. They've now changed that to a Wednesday morning breakfast, I'm sure because it'll accommodate more of the legislative representatives. So we'll also plan on Wednesday just going up to the Hill to be a part of that for those who want to. We'll be taking 2 vehicles. We'll be taking the admin car and another car. That's usually a little better for us, and cost-wise, it's much better for us than going another route. So we'll have a couple of cars. Mayor will be driving one, I'll be driving one, and so again, we should have plenty of room. And is everybody okay at noon? Okay. The other thing I wanted to share with you is a couple other things real quick. I wanted to share with you something we've been working on out of my office for a while. Let's see if I can pull this up. So this is it's called public official training because it's intended for city council, planning commission, appointed officials, anybody who, and I know this might be hard to see depending on where you're at. But anyway, what this is a website that's located, we'll send this out to you at wccouncil.org. And that will be available to people who have a washingtoncity.org email address. So you'll have to be logged in that way and then go in. And its purpose is to provide resources to you as elected officials on all these categories. And if you can't see them, so for instance, elected and appointed official basics, you'll see that we provide training on officials essentials, powers and duties. And let me just show you what these mean. So almost all of them are short videos on on information. So here's powers and duties of elected and appointed officials. We just go to a couple more. Here's powers and duties, Open Public Meeting Act with David Church. This is a great one. What hat do I wear? This talks a lot about decision-making process. Am I legislative? Am I administrative, or am I quasi-judicial? And again, what we wanted to do with this website is to create something that you could say, oh, I wanted to remember how that was, and do it in a very short, succinct, as entertaining as possible. And some of them are actually quite entertaining way. And so almost 95% of this is short video. Some are static documents that pertain to us specifically. Then we go into meetings. Meetings is another one here. Let me just pull this up. Public and open meetings, council meeting protocols, conflict disclosures, which you all received. Here's some, if you want to know more about what Utah's grandma law is about. These are very short videos with respect to that. This will probably be the one that I would encourage you to go with more. This is the land use one. You'll see what your role is as a land use role. So Land Use Academy 101, private property rights, how to make a decision in land use planning, Utah Ombudsman, what is the role that they play, general plan, zoning, conditional use permits, appeals. Some of these we don't have stuff in, for instance, legislative updates. We'll put some items in legislative updates. Here's some videos on affordable housing within the state, since that's a big issue for us at the moment. The next section is on finance. You'll see that we have categories on budget. As a matter of fact, when Kimberly was talking tonight, we'll put on a video on OpenGov, so you can see how to do that. Fund classifications, fraud, special revenue funds. Under power, we've added information on UAMPS. We've added information on the carbon-free power project. Economic development. Oh, I got a couple of links too. Economic development, we've got reinvestment, community reinvestment information. I got to tell you, there's a couple of broken links that I found out about an hour ago. So we'll click those up. This will be a website that, again, might get a lot of use, might not get a lot of use. It will be growing and developing. We'll find that if there are some resources that will be helpful to the council and to the other officials, we'll drop them here. Again, our whole goal is that you have a place to go to get some additional information. I didn't mention there's a information services one there. So if you want to know how iPad training, Apple Pencil training.
Is there really?
Yeah. Yeah. So look under the information services. But our goal here was that there's a place for you to get some reminders, to see what does this mean, and do it in a very short, succinct manner, and as entertaining as we can possibly make the Open and Public Meetings Act of the state of Utah for you. So I want to share that with you. My intern was a great help on this. So there's that. We'll send it out to you, the link, so you don't have to write it down now. And actually what we may do, we talked about this, if you want to, we can actually put a direct app on your iPad that you can click on and drop into the. I would like that. Okay. Second thing I just wanted to mention to you, this has also been a project that I've been working on in my office for some time, and I appreciate the efforts of Drew and Gary and Jeff, but we're anticipating that starting around March 1st, the building department will offer a third-party inspection services. And what this is going to amount to in a nutshell is, and this is only for residential, so this will be residential construction, renovation, or addition, and townhomes at this point, nothing more. And basically what they can do is they would have the option within Washington City from a approved list of vendors to be able to choose any or all. And the reason I say any is because, well, I think Drew had a great example. You take a Thanksgiving time, and Washington City is closed for Thanksgiving and the Friday after, and then Saturday and Sunday. And our builders may say, well, I need to get a rough electrical inspection done. So they'll have that option. Sometimes, as you know, the most difficult market we have right now in our city to hire for is building inspectors. And when we hire them, they last until somebody offers them $1 more, and then we lose them. And then we pull them back when we can offer $1.25 more, and then we lose them for. It's a tight market right now, and so sometimes we're down on inspectors. Sometimes, we have vacations and sick leaves and everything like that. So this does not require them to use a third-party option, but it does give them the option. What they'll be required to do is to come in and, if they do this, and sign a third-party residential construction acknowledgement form, which just makes it clear on how this will function, and what their obligation is, what our obligation is. They'll be able to see the approved list of vendors. And then the additional exhibit is for those inspections that they don't use Washington City for. We have a fee schedule of which they would not, we would refund back that. So we collect all fees up front, of course, as part of our permit fees. But if they choose not to do the rough electrical or the gas or the insulation through Washington City, we monitor that and we can refund them back our portion of it. The third-party contracts, we are not brokers, so they will work directly with the third-party vendors. And right now we have one, but we anticipate that a couple more will come. A company called Shums Coda. What we will do is we will roll this out. We've got a couple little things we're still putting in place. We'll roll this out. We'll evaluate it over 6 months to see how it works, what modifications we have to make, if it makes sense, if it's not problematic, and it can become a part of our building services, a permanent part of our building services. A couple reasons we like this. One is that it gives the builder an option that if they can't fit within an inspection schedule of ours, they have, now we can't guarantee they'll fit in the private inspector schedule either, but it gives them that option. It's a tool that they can pull off the shelf if they want. Also, depending on how this takes off, whether this is massive or somewhat or none at all, I think it potentially has the opportunity to shape kind of a peak and valley off our flow of ability. And the other great thing about this is it's pretty innovative. This is once again one of those great things we can say about Washington City. They are known to exist, these things. We currently don't have these in this area. We've had contractors ask us about this before. And so we're kind of excited about getting this rolled out. So
You've seen this done someplace though before.
Yeah, well, there's places that do it. Whether it's exactly the way we did, we generated our own acknowledgement forms and things like that. We recognize there'll be questions that'll come up that we don't know that will come up yet. But we are the first in our area to offer this opportunity to our builders. And again, we'll see how it goes. I think clearly it'll probably be said that the Washington City process is probably going to be a much more cost-effective way for them, but it also may not be, depending on their schedule. If we're a little off, or if they've got a rush job or something like that, and this just gives them that option.
I really appreciate this because I've seen how we've had to accommodate the ebb and flow of permits and how do we keep these trained professionals in our city. If we're able to diversify our services and secure the job of our personnel within the city at the same time, I think that's a great move.
Let me add a couple more things that I think are important, and thank you, Councilman. First of all third-party contractors know that their inspection services are subject to audit on our part, and we will. We can, wouldn't happen all the time, but we can accompany them on inspections. And just so you know, the two inspections that are not allowed third-party are footings, because that's what lays out our setbacks, and finals, because that's when we accept the product as a city. So, but all others are acceptable at this point. And again, still some things to work out.
But only in those couple zones.
Yeah, right now it's only residential and only townhomes. Now, yes. If we have big projects like Ovation, again, coming in, we can sit down and individually negotiate a third party to handle that. Just because you take a problem. One of the challenges we have in this city, just so you know, inspection-wise, is projects like Ovation. So if they call for an inspection, it takes an inspector all day. And I can tell you there are times when we go and schedule all day and they're not prepared. And all of a sudden it's pushed everybody else off. Now we'll pick up what we can, but then they may not be ready. So these large projects are part of the challenge we've had a little bit. And so some of these big, large projects, we may actually do some third party, but those will be individual negotiations as we kind of get to those big Ovation projects. We're really excited about that. Thanks to the building department will do the heavy lifting at this point on this. They'll keep us updated on how it functions, but we're certainly building it to be successful.
Can you tell me about what the audit review process you've got in place?
So the audit review process will consist of several things. First of all, the individuals who do the third party have access with permissions, which means that they're limited in what they can do, to file their own reporting through Blueprints. Blueprints is our system that we use here. And we want that because we don't want to have them do it all and then we have to repeat putting it into the system. And we've done that before, by the way. So they'll be able to file their own inspection reporting. So the first audit will typically just be us randomly choosing their inspections and reviewing them, okay? Make sure they're complete, that they're, and part of this, of course, is all going to be in the vetting of the third party, first of all. I mean, we want to make sure that we have people that we know have got good reputations, have all the licensing, all of that. But we will review randomly their inspection reports.
Do you have a number of how many randoms you'll pull?
No, we'll look, and actually, we talked about that today, and I told Gary that after a couple months, we'll look at the auditing and see how it's going. I mean, it's possible we may throw a party and nobody show up. But after a couple months, we will look at this, we'll evaluate the auditing. They can do some auditing when they go back for another inspection. So let's say they choose a rough plumbing with an outside group, and then we go do the rough mechanical. It's possible we can just look over the rough plumbing at that point and see how that looked and if it met our, or we could go out and accompany them completely on their audit, or we could go and do a audit after them on the very same issue. My hope is that we have great contractors that are coming in that we trust and have confidence with, and so that we have to audit, because at the end of the day, the cities are responsible for the quality assurance of the product. And so that's why we kind of have that in place. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's right.
What's the mechanism for bad audits? I mean, as far as putting some teeth into that, they do a lousy job. They risk losing their ability to do it.
Correct. Yeah. So that's
No
why
fee
we
schedule or any kind of downside that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are going to be, we talked today, they're going to have to be responsive in their input. So the reports they're submitting to the city and the blueprint system have to be timely. They have to be on the same schedule as ours would be. And that's so that we don't get held up for the next one. Again, there's going to be questions that are going to come up that we don't have the answers to at the moment. But we think this is a good and innovative approach, and we're pleased with the city's efforts to go this direction. So with that, Mayor, I'm done.
All right. No worries. Thanks, City Manager. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
I think it's